Nathan Dahm, State Party Chairman.
Sandy Hodges. I am a state committee woman for Wagner County.
Madison Ferris, and I was the aide to the delegation.
Reese Lawson, I was the page for Oklahoma for the RNC.
Speak real loud.
Those don't amplify.
My name is Taylor Broyles. I'm your chairwoman for your Young Republicans here in Oklahoma, and I also served as a delegate to convention.
Matt Vermillion, I serve as communication director, but also as an alternate delegate.
Martha Vermillion, I was an alternate delegate.
I'm Stan Stevens. I'm the executive director of the OKGOP.
Bay Myers, I was just a guest.
The microphone doesn't amplify, so just...
Bay Myers, I was just a guest.
Shauna Myers, the Osage County GOP chair. I was just a guest.
Jennifer Stevens, Tulsa County Vice Chair. I was just a guest and a little bit of staff.
That's right.
I'm Rhonda Villamont Smith, and I was an alternate delegate.
All right. So I thought it was kind of a nice mix of folks and their roles that they played at the RNC. So the first question I want to ask the panel is just what was your general impression? What was your biggest takeaway? We'll start with our young Republicans here, and we can just go on down the line, and you can speak as much or as little as you like.
Yeah, with this time being my first convention, I was really excited to feel the energy in the room and see what everybody was feeling. And I think we finally realized that we all need to come together as a nation and get President Trump elected. So it was really interesting, given the events that happened a couple days before convention. I feel like the energy in the room was totally different, but it was fantastic. It was a really good time.
I served as a page, so I didn't get to experience much of what everyone else did. I've paged for the state capitol before, and it was very different than my expectations.
So I just want to interject. This girl worked her tail off. She worked from morning till night, sometimes without food or appreciation. And so I just want you to know how much we totally appreciate everything that you did at the convention.
I served as the aide to the delegation, so my focus was all on Oklahoma. And it was the biggest impression I took away is the difference in the Oklahoma groups compared to, all the other different cultures from all the other states. It just reminded me that Oklahoma is where it's at. I like these people. They're not rude like New Jersey or anything like that. So all my focus was always on Oklahoma. And so it was just a great opportunity to serve the state in that capacity.
I agree with all that's been said. The energy was fantastic. There was such a positivity and such an overwhelming, really almost just joyful that we were all there together. And I can tell you these young women were so helpful. They did such a great job serving us and worked day and night. It was wonderful to see. There was so much going on that it's hard to pick out any one thing that was awesome. The whole thing was awesome. From the delegations that were there to all the planned events on the floor, everything went quite smoothly. We were crammed in like sardines, but that was okay because we were all there for a common purpose, so that was wonderful.
Well, and one thing that the new chairman of the RNC, Michael Whatley, he's the one that Trump picked. He took over for Ronna, and he set goals for this year. And he said that we were going to do three things as the RNC. One, they were going to put on a world-class convention, which I believe we all agree they absolutely did that. It was world-class. The convention is essentially the Super Bowl of politics, right? But it's only once every 4 years, right? And so they did a phenomenal job. The Trump campaign kept reiterating that this is a week-long campaign commercial to the nation of why they should vote for Trump and Vance, why they should vote for President Trump. And so they kept reiterating that. But the RNC chairman said they want to put on a world-class convention, they want to focus on election integrity, and they want to turn out the vote. That's what the RNC is focusing on from now until November, and they absolutely got a big old check mark on doing a world-class convention, because you got to realize there was tens of thousands of people from not just around the country, from around the world. The Oklahoma delegation, we almost had 200 people just from our state. Multiply that times 5 or 50, including several other states like Texas, California, Florida, much larger states as well, right? So you're talking about thousands of delegates, thousands of alternates, thousands of guests, media, press. I mean, you're just talking about all these different things. And for Oklahoma, because I was a delegate or an alternate in 16. I was a delegate in 20, but we didn't really have a convention in 20, right? And so I got to experience it in different ways. We actually had good seating. If you saw, we were right in front of President Trump's seating, the white chairs where the family was and everything. Oklahoma was right there. We could turn around and see him and all his guests. We were right in front of the stage. And so this was a world-class convention that the RNC put on, and they didn't do it alone. I'm going to continue to echo what others have said about our delegation aide, Madison, who worked directly for Oklahoma. Reese worked directly for the RNC. So if you were watching and you saw at different times when there was different speeches, when all of a sudden the signs that everybody was holding up matched the speeches going on, that's because Reese and the other pages were running around passing out those signs right beforehand, running around nonstop. So it was a 4-day event, but when I say 4 days, it was 26 hours a day for those 4 days. But it was a great event, and I just want to echo what these wonderful young ladies did for our delegation and for the RNC.
You want me to start it on this one? So having attended a number of conventions, the air of excitement was great. I thought that it was a lot of fun. Everybody was working together. We were all excited. I don't know. When President Trump was shot, I was in flight, and so when I landed and I took my phone off of airplane mode, my phone got blown up. And finally, I had to turn to the lady next to me. I said, "Did something happen?" And she said, "Yes, Trump was shot." And then it's just like, that takes the wind out of your sails, because you're like, am I going to be attending a funeral and not a convention? What is going on? But then she showed me the video. And when I saw him get up and walk off, I was so relieved. But, what a man to have literally known that he was within, and if you do a 1/4 of an inch with your finger, just take a look at that. That's how far he was away from dying. So the excitement there was the fact that he survived it, and it made us stronger, and I believe it brought us together as a nation in being able to have a reason and a purpose for voting for Trump. And I was thrilled to be a part of this convention.
I had a great time. This was my first time ever going to anything like this. I got to watch it on TV, but actually being there in person was amazing. This is my first time really being involved with the party, actually. And so when you're at home, you don't really know what's going on, but when you're actually there watching the process, it's actually pretty amazing and very exciting. I've been able to come back and explain actually how it works on the county level, and then at the state level, district, and then state level, and now at the RNC, and actually being able to come back and explain to everybody the process and how exciting it is. I have a lot of people that are very excited about the next time wanting to get involved, and I'm very excited about that.
Nothing to say? Well, so it was absolutely a great time and an extremely exciting place to be. But a couple of things that I had the privilege to get to do that were different or outside of the convention itself was Nathan had me host one of our major donors, and Jennifer and I got to escort him around to a couple of events. The greatest event of the whole thing was the Harley-Davidson Museum. And I enjoyed that quite a lot. But following that, we went to the Black Mayors Association reception. And I didn't think much about it on our way there, but this turned out to be really one of the greatest events I went to the whole week. Yeah, and these guys were on fire. And Byron Donalds was there, Tim Scott, another congressman from Texas whose name I didn't catch, but I expect we're going to hear more from him because this guy was really energized, a young guy. And it was really encouraging to see the growth in this group. And I'm hoping that the Republican Party will continue to reach out because, we have lost that vote over and over and over to Democrats. And the Civil War. And, these folks should be with us, and they are really, energized. They're focused on the economy and their lives, the middle class, those kind of things. And anyway, it was just a really great event. I was really privileged to get to go to it. And, it was really one of my favorite days of the convention.
One of my favorite things was the breakfasts that we had in the morning with our different speakers, with Mark Robinson, the Governor Stitt, and of course Stan would mention Laura Boebert because she almost fell over Matt's back wheels of his electric wheelchair, and Stan happened to be standing right there and thought he ought to catch her, but luckily she didn't trip. But other than that, the other amazing thing was, or the thing that I most enjoyed, was the roll call. When Sophie was on camera, Sandy was on camera, and everybody was looking around at Sophie instead of listening to what Nathan had to say about the Oklahoma delegation.
They talked about the assassination. On Saturday, we happened to be putting bags together for all the delegates and alternate delegates and the guests and all that. And Pam Pollard got a text that he had been shot. And that room became really quiet, really fast. And we gathered around for a prayer to put the arm of God around him to protect him at that moment, because we didn't know what was going to happen. And so I was searching on Twitter, because that's where you're going to get the news at most fast, trying to see what had happened, and got the picture. And we'd first thought he'd been shot through the face into the ear, but thank God he was protected. Amen. And I said that moment, it was providence. Remember that word?
I do remember.
It was providence. And that's exactly what happened that moment. It was amazing to be able to work, and not only as staff, but also as an alternate delegate, and to be in the different places in different areas. And you talk about security, there was security. You were not getting into this place if you weren't supposed to be there. And it was amazing to see what was done with that. And again, reiterating what the RNC was saying and the Trump campaign, this was a week-long campaign for Trump to get elected. That was the whole purpose of that. And so they wanted to make sure the seats were full and that people were there for the TV and making sure that happened. And I think they did a heck of a job in getting that pulled off for that week.
Question directly for Nathan. How was it that Oklahoma was able to cast their delegate votes so early? I was not expecting you to be on TV, and I had the TV on mute, and all of a sudden David's like, there's Nathan. And I look up, and of course there's adorable Sophia. And that was really what I thought, not there's Nathan. It's like, oh, it's Sophia. But how was it that we got to be kind of first in line, or one of the first?
Yeah, so normally we do the roll call of states on Thursday. If you remember in 16, it's always the last night that they do the roll call of states. But again, this was Trump's campaign. He, had won the majority of the delegates by far, 90+%. And then the ones that DeSantis and Haley had won, they had released them and actually encouraged them to vote for Trump. So essentially, Trump had 100% of the delegates, right? So he was the de facto nominee, even though he wasn't official. So his campaign was working with the RNC, and they came up with that they wanted to get through the business of the convention on Tuesday or Monday afternoon first, so that the evening would be about the speeches, about making the case to the American people about why they should vote for a President Trump administration. And so they had told us just very quickly before that hey, that the roll call of the states is actually going to be Monday afternoon. Be prepared for that. So we went into that thinking that it was going to be more later on, that Oklahoma was going to cast our ballots. They contacted me because I was one of the whips for the Trump campaign, as well as being state party chair, delegation chair. They made me a whip and an assistant parliamentarian. So I had a lot of different roles, a lot of different hats. Actually, for the whip, they gave me a yellow hat to be the whip. But so they had told me, they said, all right, so each state is going to have 30 to 45 seconds to make your statement, to cast your ballots for President Trump. We will give you the script beforehand, and the script is the part that officially needs to be said that says, that Oklahoma casts all 43 of our delegate votes for President Donald J. Trump. That's the part that has to be said, and they let each state embellish a little bit and say whatever we want to. So I mentioned the President Trump Highway. I mentioned that President Trump got all 77 counties twice in a row, with this November being the third time that that's going to happen. But we didn't know until just right beforehand that Oklahoma was going to be the third state to do that, because normally they go alphabetical. In fact, earlier that morning we had talked about that it's going to be alphabetical. I was in talks with Governor Stitt because he was in town for it, and normally you have your most senior elected official, either a governor or a U.S. senator or the state party chairman. Those are the three that usually do it. So I was working with Governor Stitt's team to have him do it, but he was already scheduled to be speaking at a full day event that Heritage Foundation had at the exact time that we were going to be doing it. So I was the backup. And so I didn't know until right beforehand that we were going to be doing it third in line and that I was actually going to be the one doing it. But it worked out really well. Oklahoma was very well represented. Pam Pollard got to make one of the official motions as well because she's been so involved with the RNC. But it just shows that Oklahoma does have good standing with the RNC, with the current chairman, Michael Whatley, that we were able to give our delegate votes to President Trump so early on in that process instead of the normal alphabetical method that they normally do.
Great. Yeah, I was expecting it to be alphabetical too, and I'm like, how did O come after whatever? It's like we should be way down the line. There's been a lot of talk about the platform, and I'm real interested to hear what you all have to say, what you can tell us from the Trump campaign, what they had to say about the new platform from the RNC, and how we as Oklahomans can begin to implement that. Why don't we start on the back row? Anybody who wants to speak to that, you don't have to.
You might have Taylor address it because she was on she served.
Yeah, I served as the female from Oklahoma on our platform committee, which was super exciting. There was actually a good handful of young Republicans that served on the platform and rules and the rest of the committees the first week. We actually served as a whip as well because Oklahoma, we became a trusted state to the campaign. Basically, the campaign said, this is the platform that the president himself has written. And if you read it, you'll notice capitalizations and the way that words are emphasized, that is from President Trump himself. And he actually called in that morning during committee and said, this is something that we've been working on, that he has personally been working on. And he talked for a good 15, 20 minutes. The chairwoman actually had to kind of cut him off a little bit because he kept going on about how we're all excited to come together and support this platform. I was happy to vote for the platform. I did vote yes. It did pass with a supermajority. And I think it's fantastic. Looking at it, it's easy to read. It's stuff that we can all support around the state. I think our party needs to be, open to letting a lot of people in. We say we're a big tent party and we need to be. We need to prove it. And I think that this platform supports that.
So the way it works with the committees, there's different committees on the RNC for the convention, and the requirements are that there be a male and female from each state serving on that committee. So the Trump campaign looked at each state, and they looked at people, and they said, hey, this is who we want to serve on each of the individual committees. And so at convention, our state convention, they approached them after the slate had passed, and we knew who all the delegates and alternates were going to be. You have to be a delegate to serve on a committee, not an alternate. And so they looked at the delegate list of those that had been elected at district conventions as well as state convention, and they said, okay, this is who we would like to serve as the male, this is who we would like to serve as the female on each of the conventions, on rules, on platform, on the various committees that are created for the national convention. So they selected people that they wanted to serve on that. They presented that to the delegates after our state convention. The delegates voted on affirming those people to serve in those positions. And it's important to know that those individuals had to go up to Milwaukee a week before the convention because those meetings were taking place before the convention. So that was a whole week before. So Taylor was there a week before. Mark Allen was was the male that served on that. We had other people serving on other committees. I mean, I was up there for like 15 days or something with the convention and everything. I was up there for 2 weeks because we had other RNC stuff happening even before that. So they had to take time at their own time, spend money out of their own pockets to go and serve on that. But these were all people that the Trump campaign had selected to serve on those committees that then the delegation also voted to send them to serve in those committees.
Matthew, you had something?
I know there's been a lot of controversy about the platform and whatever you want to think about that. But one of the things we need to think about in this is that understand Trump's the one that wrote this thing and approved it. He's thinking in the campaign mode of trying to get the independents to vote for him. He's already got most of his base. Not saying that not all of them, but we got to think about us trying to reach out and get more people into our party to vote for him right now. That's the most important part. Either that or we get the evil that we've got coming at us. We have the oligarchs coming over us at the wall. And it's time to get together and be united and get this thing done. Because if we don't, we have no America left, guys. That's it.
Anybody else on platform? Yes.
And I've served on the platform committee at the state level a number of times and have chaired it. Our platform is 36 pages, at least. And every year we talk about let's stick to the principles, let's make it more comprehensible, and let's shorten it. And we all say, oh, yeah. And we added another page and a half this year. And I had to remind those delegates that we talked about this is principles that we believe in as Republicans. It's not meant to speak to pieces of legislation. And we can do that at the state level. But again, President Trump, this is the platform he wanted to speak to the principles that we all believe in as Republicans. And he doesn't, in it, there's not a big enumeration about specific pieces of law. That is not what this document is for. It's also not a document to beat our elected officials over the head with. It is a document of a statement of principles that we as Republicans believe in. And if you read through it, you will agree with the principles. And these are the principles that we believe in and can agree with across the nation and that President Trump wants to run on. And we need to support him on that. Some very conservative people were wanting to cause a stink about it. It just wasn't pro-life enough. It is pro-life. Does it speak to legislation? No. That's the responsibility of the states. It is not the responsibility of the federal government. Amen. So it's a really good document. It's 15 pages. Wonderful. You can even read it, and it doesn't take you all night.
And it has a great picture of President Trump in it. So, yeah. In case you wonder where it came from. I'm interested to find out what things did you, especially the youngsters who were there. You're the generation coming up. This is going to be on your shoulders very soon, and we want to know, what did you learn at this convention that you are going to take to your constituents and your circles of influence to help grow the party, to help grow the America First movement, that we are Americans, that we have a constitution, that we are the party of liberty. What are the things that you learned at the convention that you're going to take to your friends and folks that you know?
Sorry. I think this goes back even, honestly, back to the platform, because it is something that welcomes everybody. It's something that our generation can understand. I have multiple young people that come to me all the time and they say, oh, I'm just not as conservative on this issue and da-da-da. And there are some people that say, well, in our Republican platform, this is what it says you have to do. And now with this platform, it's like we are more open to welcoming younger people in. It's what the young generations believe in. I know you say we're the next generation, but I always say we're the now.
You are the now generation. You really are.
We're the now. I have a lot of young Republicans that are running around the state, which is fantastic. So I think we're able to recruit just more young people around the state. It's like we are just happy to have anybody who wants to support that America First push, who wants to support the president and our vice president. So I just think, and seeing the energy at convention, I think that compared to the DNC coming up, they're going to realize that the people at the RNC were excited to be there. And there's a big push for, for liberty and for freedom, and that America First push is something that I think a lot of people in our generation are excited to see.
I think one thing that I'm really excited about is that when I work with young people, and I have a group that I've pulled together of young conservatives who work in Oklahoma City, and we just get together for lunch and things sometimes, talk about, just a little social club. And something that I've seen is that a lot of us are surprisingly and extremely willing to work across the aisle to get things done and to achieve, if maybe something that would get us 50% towards our goal rather than 100% at one time, but that allows us to keep moving forward. I sense a lot of desire for momentum from young Republicans, and I think it's completely possible to be a very proud Republican and also get things done at the same time. And so that's been one thing that it was really cool to talk with there were a few other delegation aides that we got to kind of bond over how difficult the job was while we were on the floor. And they had a lot of the same feelings, and so it was really cool to talk about that. And that also goes back to the platform and, where the doors are kind of opening up a little bit, saying, this is the Republican Party, this is the party of the people. And really, there's room for a lot of people in here. And I think there's room to be very welcoming with it. And I don't mean to sound too liberal or anything, but I think it's a really cool opportunity, and that should be welcomed.
So I'm 17. I'm a senior in high school. I have always been at the young end of whatever I'm participating in. I think that it is very important to get young Republicans involved. We need more people to carry on the party and carry on those beliefs and what we stand for. And I just think that it's a wonderful thing that we have all these young people involved now.
Faye, did you have anything to add?
You're going to have to talk loud, though.
Yeah, real loud.
Who was your favorite speaker?
Yeah.
My favorite speaker was,
Besides President Trump.
yeah, J.D. Vance's wife was really good.
J.D. Vance's wife. Okay.
She did really good.
Yeah. And that's a great segue about J.D. Vance. How surprised were you? How pleased are you? What questions do you have for J.D.? Anybody?
I'll start. So I really didn't know anything about J.D. Vance coming into this. I didn't, he wasn't someone that I thought would be a top pick. But I am very excited. I think that he shows that, he's one of us. He has worked his way up, and the stories from his childhood about his mom and having her there at convention, that's just amazing. It's someone that is one of us, and he understands all the hardships that the American people have gone through. So I think he's a great pick for the president, and I'm very excited to support both of them.
For people who don't understand his story and how important it is to have him in this race, he may not have been the pick that everybody wanted, but to realize where he came from in the most impoverished area of our nation, and to realize where he is now, and that his mom battled addiction, his family was destroyed by it, and that impacts 76% of the adults that live in the United States today, and how we should really take this and run with it as the conservative Christian party that we claim to be. This is where we should stand right now. We can do so much good, and having him as our vice president would be huge. To turn the page, to help so many people who are struggling. This is a big deal to have his mom there, who was fixing to celebrate 10 years of sobriety. I have lost somebody. He was my best friend since I was 12, my children's dad. In 2021, he died of an overdose in the Hard Rock Hotel here in Tulsa. Stan just celebrated 16 years of sobriety. We have people that serve in our legislature right now who cannot stand in front of this crowd and tell their stories where they have triumphed over tragedy with addiction. And we've got to change that. We have got to lead with this, and Oklahoma can be the place that we start. He can be the catalyst for that. We've got to use him for that, and we can save lives. We can start right here doing that.
Before he was announced, I just want you to know, I said I would hang his poster in my bedroom. So
I don't know how I'm going to follow that. But I know, I'm up. But look at the contrast between J.D. Vance and this guy who came from Kentucky. And I've been in Kentucky. I've actually done ministry in Kentucky. And you're right. You talk about a impoverished area and the struggles that they go through there. But then you see the other contrast with Donald Trump. Such a contrast. Doesn't that explain America? And that's exactly what he wanted to portray with this decision. And it came across quite clear with even the speakers that he had up there. And I know there's some people that didn't like some of the people that got up there and spoke, but they spoke from their heart about why they were voting for Donald J. Trump. That's the key.
Lori, I'll say something on Vance also.
Okay.
So I was saying it was going to be Vance for probably 6 months when people would ask me, like, he was my top pick. Just because I had done some research on his background. He's in Ohio, which is helpful. There's just a lot of things. He is a young Republican. He's more far right than President Trump, and I said this beforehand, you want your vice president to be assassination insurance because you want them to be so scared of the vice president that they don't want to try to take them out. But they did try to take out President Trump, and Vance is even more conservative. Vance is America first, absolutely. He will pull things to the right. He will be a wise advisor for President Trump. But actually, the morning before they announced it, Congresswoman Bice was on the floor talking to the Oklahoma delegation, and she asked me who I thought it was going to be, and I said Vance. She said, "Oh no, it's not going to be Vance." And then I saw her about 2 hours afterwards. I'm like, it was Vance. And so she was like, you're right. And then the other fun thing, I got a text from somebody else when they announced Vance, a former state senator, and he said, you kind of look like J.D. Vance. And so I texted him back. I said, well, you've never seen both of us in the same room, have you? So I did offer to the RNC if they needed me to serve as a body double for him, I'd be willing to do that. But I encourage you, if you still have a Netflix account or whatever, you can see J.D. Vance's movie on there. You can learn about his background, and it speaks to so many of the things that Jennifer and others have talked about, that he can resonate with a huge segment of the population that we haven't really had a president or a vice president. But I will say this, even with President Trump, even though he is a billionaire, he resonates with the average everyday person because he is an average everyday person. He just has a lot of money, right? He still goes through McDonald's and gets 2 Big Mac meals, and he still, he actually DJs all his own music at Mar-a-Lago. He picks all the music that's playing throughout that and everything. So we have a ticket that can really resonate with the vast majority of Americans if we present it in the right way. And especially when we say, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? We can compare and contrast what a Trump-Vance administration will be, because we know what it was under President Trump, to whatever the Kamala, Waltz, or whoever it's going to be. We still don't know. They could change again. But we have a great opportunity to compare the economy that everybody is dealing with, but also to compare the people. And Trump and Vance are so much more relatable than Kamala and Waltz and whatever the media is trying to make their fake personalities out as they're trying to propagandize and say that they're relatable to the majority people. No, they aren't. Trump and Vance are, and we need to be able to present that. And I think it was a huge, wise choice for President Trump, especially to pick Vance with the background and the history that he has.
Wonderful. Before I get into kind of a little bit of a more hardball question, because there's some scuttle that we need to talk about that potentially went on up there. I want to find out who was your favorite speaker, or what, did you have a favorite speaker that you heard, or was there a favorite music group? I personally want to go see Six Wire, the band that played? Yeah, Six Wire. I want to follow them around. Those guys rocked the house. So Martha started us off.
The one speaker that I thought was enjoyable to me was Don Jr.'s daughter, the 14-year-old that came out, Kai. I mean, if Donald Trump wasn't running for president right now, she would have it if she was the age. Because that whole crowd, the delegation, alternates, guests, everybody in that arena was focused on her speech. And after her speech, when she got back up to the family box, she got the biggest hug and the biggest smile from Donald Trump. That was Grandpa. And I mean, that was the most enjoyable speech besides Donald's, but that was the most enjoyable speech that I heard from a 14-year-old.
Well, my favorite was the 98-year-old World War II veteran. And that guy, he was just fantastic and just held the whole audience, and just such a story, and and not many of those left, and so it was just really great to see him there and have the opportunity to hear him.
Actually, I was quite surprised to see Hulk Hogan out there ripping the shirt off. That was a shock. I hadn't seen that since I was a kid. It was exciting, and I mean, Kid Rock, all of those things. It was wonderful, but I mean, I was just cracking up with Hulk. I mean, anyways, that was my favorite speaker. It was fun.
You just like him taking his shirt off.
I agree with Martha. I think when Kai spoke, being a grandparent myself, just looking at how President Trump was looking at her as she was speaking about her grandfather. I really enjoyed all the regular folks that spoke. They did such a fantastic job, and each one of their stories was so touching and heartwarming. And I know what President Trump his goal was to let the world know and let the voters of the country know how human he is. How personable he is, how he cares about people. I do have to tell you a little funny story. Yes, one of my daughters was thrilled that Hulk Hogan, my kids were watching some, they didn't watch the whole thing. Hulk Hogan, I had told her, I got to see Dean Cain, Superman, and got a picture with him at one of the after parties. But my daughter says, "Oh no, you should have got a picture with Hulk Hogan." So anyway, it was just wonderful. And again, it was the common everyday people like you and I that were speaking about their journey and about their situations that was just so heartwarming. And it said so much about President Trump and how he cares about the citizens of the country and how compassionate he is.
And I'm going to piggyback on that with the Gold Star families. I mean, the families that, the names of their lost loved ones have never been spoken by Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. And those are very touching stories. I love the fact that he brought people from all walks of life. I mean, Amber Rose, what a great, a lot of people don't like her, may not like her, but Trump is reaching so many people right now, and that's what it's going to take for us to win. And guys, we got to make it too big to rig, which means that the numbers have got to be there so much that that it doesn't matter what they do, it's not gonna work. So I think that his message in having the variety of people that he had reached all age groups, from the very young to the very old. And that's exactly the type of president that he is that he's a president for all America. And that's what I believe was the message at the convention.
Anybody else? Oh, sorry. Oh, you're fine. So going into the convention, several of the states we've heard have had a little contention in their state delegations. There was talk of stealing a convention, brokering a convention, replacing the candidate, unfaithful delegates, all these different types of things. Who wants to talk about that, whether it's from states like Arizona, Michigan, other places, Oklahoma? What can you tell us about that, and how was it dealt with, especially in our delegation? Behind you.
See, I talked with the Trump campaign early on. They made me aware that there was a group out of Arizona of delegates that were contacting people in other states, including here in Oklahoma, that they had contacted some delegates. And what they were going to do is they were going to move to suspend the rules in order to save President Trump. How exactly that was going to happen, they couldn't explain, but what they wanted people to do was to sign a piece of paper saying that when they got the text message, the notification saying, now's the time to suspend the rules, that they would agree to suspend the rules in order to help save President Trump. Now, I will tell you that of all the stupid things that the Trump campaign had heard throughout this whole cycle, they said this was the dumbest thing that they had heard because it makes absolutely no sense. Again, you have people on the Rules Committee that were hand-selected by the Trump campaign. Everyone serving on the Rules Committee is a Trump delegate. The entire delegation of people there, 90% of the delegates there were already committed to Trump, and the other 10% were released from their candidates and encouraged to vote for Trump. So what they were saying is that there was something out there in the ether that was going to happen that was going to ruin things for President Trump. But this group of people from Arizona and other states, including Oklahoma, they knew what was best. So they were going to save President Trump when the 51% of the delegates voted against the best interests of President Trump. This group, this coalition was going to be able to save President Trump. Now, there was rumors of them trying to get their own VP nominee if they didn't like who President Trump chose. They were going to try to push their own person by doing this rule suspension. There was all kinds of other things that they were saying that, might come up, and we just need to be prepared to save President Trump from himself and from his team. And so they were actively working in this. The President Trump campaign found out about it, especially from the Arizona call, and they were able to take steps to ensure that none of that nonsense happened during it. And, we heard things even at our state convention that said that, especially there was one group in particular that was saying that if the slate that the executive committee had interviewed people and created a slate as required by our rules, put together this slate, and there's people out there saying, well, if this slate gets elected, they're a bunch of never-Trumpers. They're going to vote against Trump. They're going to steal the election from President Trump. Didn't happen. It was never going to happen. It was a false accusation because there are some people that like to operate in fear because they know that fear is a strong motivator. So they like to operate in fear about there's always something out there in the ether. So they create all these rumors and lies and innuendos to keep people stirred up. I actually got a phone call from a lawyer that said, hey, I was at a meeting where this lady was talking about how they're going to, the delegates are going to steal the election from President Trump. Is that going to be a thing? And I'm like, no. And this is a lawyer, okay? This is someone that is fairly intelligent, right? Went through law school, practices law. He said, yeah, but what they're saying is that they're going to propose a rule that says that no felon can serve as the nominee. So you're telling me that the people that the President Trump campaign hand-selected to serve on the Rules Committee is going to vote for a rule that says that no felon can serve as the nominee. That's going to pass the Rules Committee. Then it's going to go to the full convention. And you're telling me at the convention, where 90+% of the people are committed to Trump, that they're going to vote to change the rules to say that no felon can be a nominee, and you believe that this is realistically going to happen. But there was someone going around the state telling people that this is what's going to happen. This is how they're going to steal the nomination from President Trump. In no universe does this make sense, but it pushes fear. And fear is a strong motivator when you're pulling on people's emotions rather than logic. So there was a lot of these different things that they were claiming was going to happen. Now, again, there was this group out of Arizona that was trying to undermine President Trump's campaign under the guise of we're going to save President Trump. They actually were doing that. So, but there was so much of this stuff that it was fear-mongering from certain groups within Oklahoma. But outside of that, the Trump campaign was tracking the people both in Oklahoma and out of Oklahoma that were trying to push this in order to somehow save President Trump. So it was unlike anything we've ever seen before, especially when we have a nominee that has such universal support in the party. It's not like this was going to be a brokered convention. It's not like this was in 2016 when President Trump was running with 12 other Republicans, right? And we weren't sure that he was going to have the nomination by then, have the votes. But it's very interesting how some of these groups and some of these people are pushing fear-mongering and these things, trying to just get people stirred up because they just want to fight for the sake of fighting. And so we did see some of that actually was planned out by these people from Arizona, and there were people from Oklahoma that were involved with that. But thankfully, none of that came to fruition because, again, it really couldn't have. They would have had to go through the Rules Committee. They would have had to go through the whole delegation process. They were planning it. They were trying to do it, but they weren't able to get that successfully done because the President Trump campaign was so well organized to be able to preemptively stop some of this nonsense.
And remind us, how many of our delegate votes went for President Trump? How many?
43 of 43.
43,
All 43.
And did you have to strong arm anybody in our delegation to make them vote for Trump?
No.
So everybody willingly voted for Trump. So all of the prophecies and all of the fear mongering was just all a bunch of. Anyway, so the malarkey was dealt with. Anybody else want to add in on that?
I will say that part of what was amusing is, again, ordinarily we don't do business until Thursday. And we did business on Monday, and what was, I thought, amusing was the business was done, voted on up and down before these people who were trying to create trouble even knew what happened. It was like, it's done. And they didn't know what happened. And I thought that was pretty sweet because we did have a number of them in our own delegation, and they were scheming to do trouble, and having the business done so early, and it was so well organized who was going to make the nominations. Again, our own Pam Parler got to make one of the nominations. There were 3 nominations made. Boom, boom, boom. They were made. Yay, gone. Business was done, and they were like, what happened? When they just didn't know what happened, and I thought that was pretty sweet.
I think it's also interesting that they would try to outsmart Trump. And the fact that he put in his own daughter-in-law in vice chair spot, and then to pick out Chairman Whatley, I mean, it's his own pick. I mean, these are own people. And then picking out, like he said, the Rules Committee himself, it's not like he wasn't planning this to be the rules of his own. And how would you suspend the rules to then save him? I don't understand that. I just could never get that logic out of it. But anyway.
Untangling spaghetti comes to mind. I was going to ask if there was anybody that you wanted to throat punch at the convention. Does anybody want to take that question, or we can skip it? Anybody? Wait, okay.
Everybody got on.
Can we just say yes, or do we have to say?
Madison, you're welcome to speak if you want to.
No, I.
Let it go.
Advice of counsel, she's going to plead the fifth.
So I was working with one individual. He is a treasurer for numerous national individuals, U.S. senators, congressmen, governors, people that names, if I name their names, you would know them, okay? And he worked with Madison as well as 5 other delegation aides, okay? So he was working with 6 different states, their delegation aides. He called me on the 3rd day and he said, I want you to know that Madison is by far the best delegation aide that I have worked with, not just in this convention, but any convention.
Way to go. Way to go. That's awesome.
So Madison did a phenomenal job. I will say, I told her she can yell at people. I gave her permission to do that, and she did it. She yelled at Rhonda. And Rhonda was so shocked that she was like, okay. and then Rhonda followed the instructions. And so she did a phenomenal job. And, I'll tie it into kind of some of the stuff that you talked about before. So I was in constant communication with the Trump campaign, both as chairman of the delegation, state party chairman, and especially as a whip. So they were constantly giving us instructions and directions. And things were changing. That's their prerogative, right? We had the business of the convention on Monday. Normally we do it on Thursday. That was their prerogative to change it, so we did it. But we were given instructions, and we would relay those instructions. Sometimes a couple hours later, those instructions would change. So we would relay the changed instructions. And people were like, oh, you're lying to us. So there was a few times where I actually took a screenshot of the text message and sent it out to everybody. Here's the direct text message from the Trump campaign, okay? Please follow the instructions. There was some people that just refused to do that. They wanted to do their own thing. And so one way that I tried to explain it, that I think it clicked for a few people, is I said, when you run for president, and you have 2,000 delegates, you can run your convention however you want to. But until then, I highly recommend that we all follow what the President Trump campaign is saying that we do. Now, one person came back later in the week and they said, well, different states are getting different directions. Maybe so, but I was relaying the instructions that I was given. Could Oklahoma have received different instructions because there was people there that were possibly planning to undermine the Trump campaign? Possibly. Could Arizona have received different instructions because there was people there that were trying to undermine the Trump campaign? Possibly. But I was relaying the instructions that I was receiving from the Trump campaign for our state. Whether or not those instructions were what everybody else was receiving, I don't know. I was relaying the instructions that we received so that we can make sure that we put our best foot forward for President Trump. And I said it time and time again, it was supposed to be a week-long commercial advertising the Trump campaign to the American people about why they should vote for Trump and Vance instead of whoever the Democrats put forward. And I will continue to sing Maddie's praises and Reese. Again, Reese worked for the RNC overall. Maddie worked directly for our delegation and all of our staff. I mean, everybody did a phenomenal job of dealing with almost 200 people. I've said this before. I mean, if you had 200 people there, you probably had 230 opinions because some of those people have more than one opinion on the same subject, right? And yes. And so Maddie did a phenomenal job of dealing with everything. I don't think there was a time we got to bed before 2 a.m. Any day. And then breakfast was again starting at 7 a.m. So we didn't get a whole lot of sleep. So yeah, there might have been times where somebody wanted to throat punch someone else, but thankfully it never came to blows in any regard.
No throat punching at the RNC. That's good. Was everybody surprised when President Trump showed up the first night? Yes. Describe the electricity in the room for me. Somebody? Anybody?
The electricity, just the fact that he was there, because less than 48 hours from that time, he had just almost died, took a bullet, and everybody was, I'm not going to say it sucked all the air out of the room, but people were so energized and thrilled and supportive. I mean, they were so supportive, and I cannot imagine. I try to put myself in people's positions. Had I 48 hours earlier missed being killed by a quarter of an inch, I don't know that I'd have shown up in front of a group of a whole bunch of people, even though they are the people that supposedly, love and adore me. I don't know that I would have been able to have done that and have withstood what he did. But he is an amazing man, and he continues to amaze me. And for those of you that are not aware, in 2016, I was not a fan. I was not. I came home from the convention. I gave away all my swag. 6 months later, I'm on the internet buying my swag because the man proved himself. He proved himself, and I don't care what kind of language he uses. I don't care how he talks to people. I don't care whatever. He is the best thing for America today, and it's our responsibility to get out and share that message.
I don't know, maybe you guys can correct me, but I don't remember ever a nominee being on the floor every night of the convention. And he did that on purpose to show, I'm here, guys. I'm not going anywhere, and you missed me.
That's right. And I'll say, it was my first time going to one of these, and I'll probably never go again. And I know there's several of you that are here that you attended as well, but that first night when he walked in, trying to convey what we felt being there, you just couldn't get that feeling being in that building, conveying that through the TV. It was truly something that was palpable. I've really never felt anything like that being at any other event. It was electric. It was pretty amazing, and it was really supercharged. I was really glad that I went. We stood outside for an hour and 45 minutes that day before we were able to get in. It was hot. It was miserable. We were trying to make sure the delegates were in. A lot of them were late. It was truly chaotic getting in just that first day. There was a lot of pieces to that moving puzzle that were just truly insane. But it was all that we went through, all the pain of standing out there, everything, being being crazy, everybody was cranky. When he walked in, all of that was gone. Everything changed that day, and I don't think any of us regret being there. Everything that we went through, it was really exciting, and I'm honored that I got to be a part of this historical event.
Before I take some questions from the audience, is there anything that any of you want to add that I haven't asked about? Anything you're just dying to tell us? What was your favorite swag?
Tell a fun story.
Okay, let's hear it.
Okay, so I think it was Thursday before President Trump spoke. It was earlier in the evening. I had Sophia on my shoulders, and I was walking around on the floor, introducing her to some of the other state party chairs and other people that I knew. And so I'd gone over in one corner, South Carolina, and was introducing her to a few people. And on the way back, I stopped for a second because there was, the aisle was blocked, and there was a couple ladies there, and they're like, "Oh, can we take a picture of your daughter?" And I'm like, "Sure." So they're taking pictures of Sophia because Christina had her decked out in red, white, and blue, right? And so she can say thank you. She can sign it and she can say it. But usually whenever I tell her to say thank you, I say, "Please blow kisses." And so I said, "Okay, Sophia, tell them thank you, blow kisses." And so she's up on my shoulder, and when she blows kisses, she covers her mouth and she goes, "Wow!" Like really, really loud. Okay. And so she does this, and people from like 3 states turn around and look at her. She does it again, and now people from 5 surrounding states are turning around and looking at her. And she does it a 3rd time, and I'm like, "Okay, you got to be quiet because Eric Trump is speaking right now, and you're stealing the show from him." So she had a fun time. It was great, obviously, having my wife and daughter there. But that was just a fun experience, having her on the floor and taking away from the main stage for a little bit. So that was a fun experience for me.
That's awesome. That is awesome. So with that, are there any questions that anybody has for our panelists? Something you're dying to find out? Come back here.
Yes, I thought Sarah Huckabee Sanders and that lady by the name of Brame, I think that's what her last name was, gave fantastic speeches as well. But I did have a question about the press covering the convention. Was there a large foreign press there as well? Because as you know, our local or national media tends to filter things in a way that we don't particularly appreciate.
Yes, so one thing that happened was Oklahoma, again, we were right in front of President Trump's seating, and he was there every night. So what happened was on Monday night, all the press on the floor were gathered around there and created a bottleneck. They were forcing us. I mean, we were kind of getting smushed like sardines. And so they tried to create a temporary wall to keep people from crushing us and different things and keep them right off of being right underneath President Trump. And then each day that changed a little bit more. The second night, they actually had a permanent wall or a more permanent wall. The 3rd night, they had security there telling people, "You cannot stand here, take your picture and keep walking." And so it kind of changed through the night, or through each night. But there was foreign press and other press. I mean, I saw CNN and others on the floor at all times. Several people from the Oklahoma delegation got interviewed by Fox. I did an interview with French TV at one point in time. So there was media there constantly doing interviews with people on the floor and throughout the convention, not just during the convention, but there was all kinds of other things. I mean, I don't know how many people were there, but I mean, they had press from over 100 countries represented, as well as national press as well. Anybody want to share a story they did on press?
Well, I just had a quick side note. So during the convention, my sister was actually in Norway, and I know this won't be a surprise to you, but foreign countries are laughing at America and how ridiculous the current administration is. She was calling me probably at least once a day because they were watching our convention and laughing seriously at the coverage that was going at least to Norway. And her Norwegian friends had questions, and she was like, "Oh, well, my sister's actually there. I'll call her." And so I'm explaining to Norwegians at least once a day, what's going on, like, it's not that ridiculous. And I, just didn't really have time to do that for every other country. I was happy to do that. I was happy to do that for Norway, but I just, I want to throw that out there and remind you, like for foreign press, there was a huge presence there. I got into a little scuffle with an Italian reporter or something sometime. So, there were a lot of people there, and if just Norway was getting coverage that, made America look ridiculous, then I can't imagine what's going to other countries. And so I really think that would change if we got Trump back in the office, that foreign countries would take us more seriously, but it's just way too soft right now, so.
And there was a lot of press. I mean, press in the aisles all over. You couldn't hardly get around because of how much press there was. So there was everybody covering it from every angle. There's just tons of people.
This is the one complaint I have for the whole RNC and where they dropped the ball. There was press, and there was a ton of press. And the designated areas they should have had for people confined to wheelchairs that needed assistive aids to be ambulatory, they designated those areas to the press. We had 3 people in our delegation that needed wheelchairs to be able to attend. Not only would there not transportation for our people who needed wheelchairs, there was no places for them to be seated at the arena once they got there. The first night, they were seated behind the stadium, or behind the stage, and the only place that you could watch was on a TV across the arena, which you couldn't even see because lights that were in the rafters were covering the TV. They had one lady that was designated to help the people that were in wheelchairs find a place to sit for the whole convention. They just didn't take into consideration the people that would be there that would be needing assistance to be at the convention, and it was a real headache. There were our 3, I don't know what they would have done. Steve Curry helped quite a bit, but Stan stayed the whole time making sure that our people had transportation to get there. Sometimes it took several hours. It was just really disappointing that they just dropped the ball, just didn't even take into consideration that people would want to attend, and these people were going to need to be able to have places to sit, and they gave it to people who did not belong there to begin with.
I want to give a special shout out. I know Jennifer already did, but yes, to Steve Curry. Yeah. My husband, Matt Vermillion, Stan right here, they helped out a whole bunch. By the end of the convention, the ADA sections and everything else, the help, as soon as we walked in, we had somebody right there. As soon as they saw Matthew in the wheelchair and me helping him, and Stan helping me to get Matt where we needed to be. The first night of the convention, yes, me and Matt had to sit behind the stage because there was no other ADA sections because of the media taking up where we were supposed to be at. The second night, we found another place that we could see some of the stage. The third night, like I said, by the third night, they had people at the door. If you were handicapped, needed help, even though you had help with us, they made sure that we got somewhere where we could see.
And to be fair, this is probably the smallest venue compared to what they've ever had in the past. And I think that's some of it. So let's just don't trash on top of the RNC of dealing with it. I don't think it was totally all their fault in that situation, but they did their best, and by Tuesday, Thursday, Wednesday, they were definitely getting things straightened out. So
I want to just touch on it, seeing as my job was media management and, just making everything look good for TV. I will say the press did nothing short of testing my patience and the patience of the pages the entire week. I have never met people more unafraid to get in my way than I did the whole week with some of the press. So.
I want to ask Reese, exactly what did you do?
So my job, I had duties with the OKGOP and then duties with the RNC. And so with the RNC, my job was basically passing out signs, starting chants, and just kind of bringing up the crowd energy. A lot of the time I was filling seats, especially early on. So like behind the Trump box, I got to sit literally 4 rows behind him for I think 2 or 3 nights. And so basically every sign that you saw, in that arena, that was me and the 25 other pages that were there.
And just notice how she said 25 pages, but there were 50 states plus territories. All of them were supposed to bring a page. So you had like 50% of the people doing 100% of the work. And so there were days like when I think somebody mentioned they didn't always feed their pages. That was true. Like there was one night Reese got back to the hotel room. She's like, I haven't eaten all day. It was the worst. And so I thought my job was hard, but at least I got a lunch break, And so I can't imagine how difficult the job could have been. And at the convention, there were so many amazing organized moments where like the whole stadium would erupt in these cheers and we'd all be saying the same thing at the same time. And you'd think, wow, everyone's on the same page. But really, it was the 25 pages going through the audience and all getting a text alert at the same time so they knew when to start it, and they were all spread out so people would just join in. It was all so organized and so well done. And at heart, I am an event coordinator, and that's why I loved what I did so much. But this convention was so well put on. I mean, they just deserve a 2-hour round of applause for how well. And of course, you know, there were things that there's always going to be a few kinks we need to work out. But overall, it was probably the best organized event I have ever been to.
I also want to say that the lack of help or the amount that we were given, that is at no fault of the RNC. That was the other states not bringing their pages. So I just want to touch on that.
Follow up on the issue about you brought up the press. When Trump was here for his 2020 rally, we discovered that members of the press who maybe didn't care for him too much, they were caught, and it's been captured on video. They were actually colorizing all of their video of him, and guess what color they were using? Orange. No more orange man this time, as far as I have seen. And I've got time for like maybe 1 or 2 more questions. Okay, let me get over here, and then Jared will get to you.
Since the convention was in Wisconsin, did any of you happen to make the trip to Ripon?
So,
You know what Ripon is?
if you don't know, that's where the Republican Party was. Oh, sorry. So the Republican Party was actually founded in Wisconsin. So I had planned on doing that, and like I said, I was up in Wisconsin for 15 days. On day 2, my car broke down. So no, I did not make the trip out there yet, but I would like to do that sometime. But also just talking about 2028 convention is going to be in Houston. Oh, wow. So they've already announced that, so that's going to be close for us. I will say it is going to be Houston in summer. The arena hopefully will be air conditioned, but keep that in mind as well. Oh, are you coming over here, baby girl?
This is our favorite delegate.
This is our mascot. Are you gonna clap? This is our mascot, Sophia. She was the official mascot for the RNC.
Mascot, that's funny. I know that Jeremy Carnes, the chair of Canadian County, he and his daughter spent a couple extra days in Milwaukee, and they got to go. They posted pictures. We got to see some pictures on Facebook of it.
Any other fun places that you got to visit? Anybody? Harley, we got to hear about that.
No, this is going to be different.
In addition to the Harley Museum. But coming back, Jennifer and I stayed in Springfield, Illinois, and went to the Lincoln Tomb and the Lincoln Presidential Library. And that was a really, really cool stuff. Yeah. So if you get the opportunity to do that, I would recommend going to that.
So
Listen, hey, don't be upstage.
on the Friday that we were leaving, if you guys will remember, that's when all the computers were shut down. So I knew that I was going to end up getting stuck in Dallas or someplace that I didn't feel like spending the night. So I begged a ride with Shauna and her daughter, Bay. And Bay wanted to go to the Bean in Chicago, okay? I didn't know what it was. I had no idea what it was. But let me tell you, we drove through Chicago, and we were just like, oh, my gosh. We paid $32 for 1 hour of parking. In 45 minutes, we were able to park, get our picture in front of the Bean, eat a Chicago hot dog, and get back to our car. So it was a lot of fun, and it was a great time getting to share that time driving back with Bay and with Shauna, and just getting to spend time in the car, because I can guarantee you I'd have gotten stuck in Dallas overnight, and that is not where I wanted to be.
Jared, you had a question?
Yes. I really like how Stan shared at the beginning 2 events that were really meaningful to him, and I wondered if just some other panelists just quickly could highlight several of the events. There were so many things that I understand that too many that people could go to, but what were some of the non-convention highlights that you attended and really enjoyed?
Great question.
Sandy, you want it? Here you go.
Well, I was able to go to the Sarah Huckabee Sanders luncheon. I got to go. The tickets sold out like in 2 seconds. They were nowhere to be found. So Pam Pollard is real involved with the Federation of Republican Women. She's on their board, so she even couldn't get tickets. So we volunteered to work. So we got to go because we went and helped set up and get ready for it, and then we helped check them all in. There was 550 people attending this luncheon, and they could have had double that. And so because we wanted to go, we said, well, we'll work. And that was great. It was a wonderful luncheon. We got to hear Sarah Huckabee Sanders. We were still checking people in when she spoke, but after she spoke, then we got to hear the rest of the speakers, and it was a really, really nice event that we got to go to.
I actually have 3 things that I want to mention. One was the welcome night. That was fantastic. They had an array of food and drinks and concerts throughout the whole night. Fantastic. Second, I did get to go to a Brewers game the Saturday before convention, and I was actually there when the president got shot, so that was quite a memorable experience. Never gonna forget that. And then also, the third one is our night that we had with Alabama. That was so much fun to meet everybody there. I also got a picture with Vivek, so that was really exciting. But it was just so neat to meet another southern state. And we also did a southern region event as well at the ballpark one day, and that was also really great.
Anybody else?
I would actually just like to thank Nathan for inviting us to be a guest. This was amazing. We had such a great time. We learned a lot. We are getting other people excited about being a part of it, and the whole thing was exciting. Listening to the speakers, talking to other people in other states, learned a lot of good questions. I found out that Tulsa is a little town. Going to Chicago and spoke to someone from New York. That was a lot of fun. Actually, I asked him a question. I said, what was it like being a Trump supporter in 2016? And he said, well, you knew you couldn't walk around with a hat or you're going to get shot. I said, how about 2020? He goes, well, if you were brave, you can do it, but you might get shot, but you're brave. I said, well, how is it now? And he said, well, actually, they're everywhere. And I was like, I love hearing that. So we got to speak with a lot of wonderful people, but thank you for letting us be a guest. It was a great opportunity.
I just want to thank Nathan because it was really fun.
Speak up.
It was just really fun to be able to go there, and yeah.
That's her speaking up.
Babe, what grade are you in?
I'm going into 6th.
You're going in 6th grade. Is this going to make you more active with the party or more interested in politics?
Probably, yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah.
One thing Matt probably is not going to say, but I'll say it for him. Instead of trading pins like we were supposed to with other delegates, the speakers that we had, Matt had them sign his placard. And everybody thought that that was a great idea instead of handing out pins. But we're going to have, Matt's uncle is a carpenter. We're going to have him make us a shadow box. And we're going to put it up on the wall. And I think Nathan was going to, are you going to do one for the office? Nathan's going to do one for the state GOP office in Oklahoma City.
Very good. This is a very lowball, easy question. Favorite bling? Anybody? Favorite bling that you got from the convention besides what you just said?
I have to give a shout out to my crew down in Texas because when the Young Republicans, when we refederated in Oklahoma, Texas kind of took us in under their wing, even though, they call us Texas's hat. But we've upgraded. We've upgraded to Oklahomies. We're Oklahomies now, and I did get a Texas pin from one of the Texas delegates, so that is my favorite.
That's cool. Lori, what is bling?
Bling, your pin, your hat, bling.
Oh, I would like to say, actually, I got California. That was pretty exciting. But I got to speak to the American Samoa, and they were very excited to hear that we're from Oklahoma because they were like, oh my gosh, I love Matt Pinnell. And so they just love him. And so they just went on and on about how much they love Matt Pinnell. So if you're listening to this, they love you. They're very happy with you.
the Hawaiian delegation was next to us, and they were handing out, they did hand out some leis, and they were handing out, did most of the women get the earrings? They had shell earrings they were handing out, and that was pretty special.
Well, let me wrap it up.
Well, you got to wrap it up?
I'm going to wrap it
I
up.
want to
unless
say
you wanna
something.
say
I do want to say something.
Come on up.
So, so being the executive director means I stand around and point to people what to do and that kind of thing. And we've talked a lot about Madison. You know, Madison's only 22, in case you probably don't know that. And when they told me that they had hired her to be the delegation aide, I was like, great. So not only will I have more work, I'll have to babysit. However, it turned out that she babysat for me more than anything else. And she did a great job and made my job much easier, and Reese as well. But then also the chairman, you know, he gets kind of overlooked. It all starts there. Nathan planned all these things, delegated down to us, but he planned a great convention, great time. Things went really very smoothly. Obviously, I got to thank my wife for always being there, helping me. Rhonda's always a big help. But this guy, this guy works night and day. I mean, I've never seen anybody work like him. And anything that we need, anything I need, Matthew is always there. And from the time that we started getting this ready with the applications for people wanting to be delegates, putting all that all together, scheduling the interviews, up until we had selected those, getting everything ready to go, just on and on. I mean, a myriad of details. And Matthew handles that stuff, and he does it beautifully. He does it in the background. Sometimes if you talk to him, he might be a little cranky, but that's because he never sleeps. But anyway, I just can't say enough about him and the whole team and the way everything came together and the delegates and just the whole camaraderie that we had there in Milwaukee. And so that's all I have to say about that.
And with that, let's give them all a big hand. Thank you, delegates. Thank you, guests. Thank you, alternates. You make Oklahoma look terrific. With that, there is cake.